Unit 10 Organizational Culture. 10.0 Introduction. Organizational culture is a significant component of organization which not only determines the behavior of its employees, it also reflects upon the vision, mission and norms of the organization. Each organization has its own culture which may be similar to that of other organizations or unique in itself. In the present unit, you will be introduced about the concept of organizational culture. With the help of this unit, you will come to know about the components and models of organizational culture. You will also understand the process with which the level of organizational culture can be measured. Let us read the case of Adobe. Since Adobe's establishment, their worldwide revenue has grown to over $4 billion and has employed over 12,000 people. Spread across 24 different campuses in 17 different countries, 93% of Adobe employees love their workplace. Adobe's award-winning company culture is based on 4 core values: genuine, exceptional, innovative and involved. Adobe is a company that goes out of its way to give employees challenging projects and then provide the trust and support to help them meet those challenges successfully. While it offers benefits and perks like any modern creative company, Adobe's is a culture that avoids micromanaging in favor of trusting employees to do their best. Adobe products are synonymous with creativity, and only through the avoidance of micromanaging are the people who create those products truly free to create. For example, Adobe doesn't use ratings to establish employee capabilities, feeling that inhibits creativity and harms how teams work. Managers take on the role of a coach, more than anything, letting employees set goals and determine how they should be assessed. Employees are also given stock options so that they know they have both a stake and reward in the company's success. Continual training and culture that promotes risk-taking without fear of penalty are part of Adobe's open company culture. Takeaway: putting trust in your employees goes a long way towards positive company culture, because trust leads to independent employees who help your company grow. 10.2 Why organizational culture, OC, is important. Elliot Yarks first introduced the concept of culture in the organizational context in his 1951 book The Changing Culture of a Factory. The culture of an organization defines it. Organizational culture is important not only for the existence of an organization, but it also determines how people, employee and customers, will feel and behave in organizations, as it can turn them into advocates or critics. Studies have suggested that a good organizational culture leads to increased employee engagement, decreased turnover, a healthy team environment and develops a strong brand identity. 10.3 What is organizational culture? Definition. Organizational culture, also called corporate culture, has been defined as the pattern of values, norms, beliefs, attitudes and assumptions that may not have been articulated but shape the ways in which people in organizations behave and things get done. In other words, how things are done and how employees interact with each other in an organization is a reflection of its culture. The following are some other definitions of organizational culture. The culture of an organization refers to the unique configuration of norms, values, beliefs and ways of behaving that characterize the manner in which groups and individuals combine to get things done. Eldridge and Crombie. Culture is a system of informal rules that spells out how people are to behave most of the time. Deal and Kennedy. A pattern of basic assumptions, invented, discovered or developed by a given group as it learns to cope with the problems of external adaptation and internal integration, that has worked well enough to be considered valid and, therefore, to be taught to new members as the correct way to perceive, think and feel in relation to these problems. Skin. Culture is the commonly held beliefs, attitudes and values that exist in an organization. Put more simply, Culture is the way we do things around here. Culture, it is the set of important understandings that members of a community share in common. Prerequisites of a culture to exist: it must be shared by the vast majority of members of a group or society, it must be passed on from generation to generation, and it must shape behaviors and perceptions. 10.4 Components of organizational culture. What constitutes organizational culture? Which component of organizational behavior is considered as a part of the culture and which is not? As different theorists have proposed various elements of organizational culture, therefore it is not possible to identify exact numbers objectively. To ease this situation, in the following table we have summarized all important theorists and their proposed elements. 10.5 How organizational culture develops. The development of organizational culture and its learning among its employees takes time. As we have learned till now, that values and norms are the basis of organizational culture, they do not form overnight or immediately after the establishment of an organization. Rather, it is a long process which develops primarily due to the following reasons. Leaders as role model. The first step starts with the leaders, who established and or shaped the organization in past. According to Skin, the values, goals and behavior of the founding leaders work as role models for fellow employees. Role of critical events. Skin suggested that culture is formed around critical incidents, important events from which lessons are learned about desirable or undesirable behavior. Effective working relationship. Fernham and Gunter pointed out that the need to form an effective working relationship among organizational members establishes values and expectations shape up the organizational culture. External environment. The external environment such as government policies, social situations, labor laws etc. also shapes organizational culture. The external environment may be relatively dynamic or unchanging. According Robbins and Judge, the original culture derives from the founder's philosophy and strongly influences hiring criteria as the firm grows. Top managers' actions set the general climate, including what is acceptable behavior and what is not. The way employees are socialized will depend both on the degree of success achieved in matching new employees' values to those of the organization in the selection process, and on top management's preference for socialization methods. 1. Organizational founders. Founders of an organization are the ultimate source of their culture. These founders create a culture in three ways: a. By hiring only those employees who share similar ideas, views and values; b. By socializing these employees to their way of thinking and feeling; and c. Employees identify with visionary leaders and their values. 2. Selection. The aim of the employee selection process is not limited to identifying and selecting knowledgeable people but also involves recruiting people with values and ethics similar to the organization. This selection process also provides applicants with an opportunity to assess the match between their values with an organization's values. 3. Top management. Through their words and behavior, top management levels are responsible for establishing cultural norms. 4. Socialization. It is the process through which new employees learn about and adjust to the knowledge, skills, attitudes, expectations, and behaviors needed for a new role within an organization. According to Edgar Skin, organizational culture consists of three levels, namely, artifacts, values, and underlying assumptions. These three levels range from tangible to deeply embedded assumptions of behavior. He proposed that these three levels influence each other continuously. His model distinguishes between observable and unobservable elements of an organization's culture. Let us look at these three levels of organizational culture. Artifacts. Any aspect of an organization that is visible and tangible is a part of artifact. the dress code of the employees, office furniture, facilities, behavior of the employees, mission and vision of the organization all come under artifacts. Espoused beliefs and values. The second level of skin model is espoused beliefs. These are the values or beliefs initially developed or proposed by the leader and later adopted by fellow employees or subordinates. Values work as a guiding principle for defining what is good or bad for one's organization. According to Skin, these values shape underlying assumption, the third level of organizational culture. Basic / underlying assumptions. Underlying assumptions represent concepts of behavior representing deepest levels. These assumptions are unwritten, taken for granted by group members and thus non-negotiable. According to Skin, basic assumptions are so taken for granted that someone who does not hold them is viewed as a foreigner or as crazy and is automatically dismissed. Similar terms values. According to American Psychological Association, value is a moral, social, or aesthetic principle accepted by an individual or society as a guide to what is good, desirable, or important. Norms, unwritten rules of what is acceptable and expected behavior of a culture. An example of how espoused values develop. In a young business, if sales begin to decline, a manager may say we must increase advertising because of her belief that advertising always increases sales. The group, never having experienced this situation before, will hear that assertion as a statement of that manager's beliefs and values. She believes that when one is in trouble it is a good thing to increase advertising. What the leader initially proposes, therefore, cannot have any status other than a value to be questioned, debated, challenged, and tested. If the manager convinces the group to act on her belief, and if the solution works, and if the group has a shared perception of that success, then the perceived value that advertising is good gradually becomes transformed, first into a shared value or belief, and ultimately into a shared assumption, if actions based on it continue to be successful. If this transformation process occurs, group members will tend to forget that originally they were not sure and that the proposed course of action was at an earlier time just a proposal to be debated and confronted. 10.7 Ways of learning the organizational culture. The culture of an organization can be transmitted to employees through various channels. However, majority of studies identify 4 forms of transmission, namely, stories, rituals, material symbols, and language. Let us take a look at these forms one by one. Stories. Every organization has some stories of their founders, success or failure. These stories of past help newcomers to understand the expectations, beliefs and values of their organization. Hotel Taj Mahal, Mumbai. It is said that Jamshedji Tata was inspired to build this hotel after he was refused entry at one of the grandest hotels of British time, Watson's Hotel, which was restricted to whites only. Jamshedji Tata took this as an insult to whole Indians and then decided that he would build a hotel where not only Indians but foreigners could also stay without any restrictions, and that's how India's first super luxury hotel came into being. Now, Taj is a center of attraction all over the world. Such stories about founders or important events provide a glimpse of organizational culture to a new employee. Rituals. These are repetitive patterns of activity that represent an organization's values. It further informs employees what goals are most important and which people are important in their organization. Material symbols. These are physical or visible aspects of an organizational culture. It deals with questions such as, how does corporate headquarters look like? How do organizations treat CEOs and fellow employees? What kinds of perks are given? What is the size of the office? Or what attire is acceptable in office? The answer to these questions can convey to employees who is important, the degree of egalitarianism top management desires, and the kinds of behavior that are appropriate, such as risk-taking, conservative, authoritarian, participative, individualistic, or social language. Language play vital role in identifying with cultural expectations of organization. In every organization, unique terms describe equipment, officers, key individuals, suppliers, customers, or products that relate to the business. At first, new employees may find these new terms overwhelming, but the use of common language help uniting members of an organization. 10.8 Assessing organizational culture. A number of instruments exist for assessing organizational culture. This is not easy because culture is concerned with both subjective beliefs and unconscious assumptions, which might be difficult to measure, and with observed phenomena such as behavioral norms and artifacts. Some of the better-known instruments are summarized below. Organizational Culture Inventory. This questionnaire deals with the four orientations referred to earlier: power, role, task and self. Consist of 130 items. Its internal consistency ranged between .67 and .92. Harrison's Organizational Ideology Questionnaire. It assesses ideology of organization in terms of orientation to power, roles, tasks and individuals. It consists of only 15 items. Respondents rank 4 statements in each item in terms of how representative they are of a. the organization and b. the respondents' own attitudes and beliefs. Corporate Culture Questionnaire. It measures 4 principal domains of organizational culture, namely, performance, human resources, decision-making, and relationships. It is available in 2 versions. The longer version consists of 126 items, whereas shorter version have 69 items in it. It uses 5-point Likert scale with internal reliability ranged between 0.72-0.89. Core Employee Opinion Questionnaire, consisting of 13 items. This scale measures 13 different issues of an organizational culture. It includes overall satisfaction, understanding of expectations, access to required resources, appropriate use of skills, recognition and praise for achievements, relationship with supervisors, encouragement for self-development, perceptions of worth, engagement with organizational mission, commitment of all employees, friendships, appraisal, opportunities for career progression. Hofstede's Organizational Culture Questionnaire. This organizational culture measurement instrument is longer than other instruments. It consists of 135 items. Using 5-point Likert scale, it measures 3 values: need for security, importance of work and need for authority. Organizational Culture Survey. It addresses 6 empirical factors: teamwork and conflict, climate and morale, information flow, involvement, supervision, meetings. 10.9 Let us sum up. Now that we have come to the end of this unit, let us recapitulate all the major points that we have covered. Organizational culture is important not only for the existence of an organization, but it also determines how people, employee and customers, will feel and behave, as it can turn them into advocates or critics. Organizational culture can be defined as a system of informal rules that spells out how people are to behave most of the time. There are many components of organizational culture. Different theorists have proposed different components of organizational culture. According to Edgar Skin, organizational culture consists of 3 levels, namely, artifacts, values, and underlying assumptions. These 3 levels range from tangible to deeply embedded assumptions of behavior. He proposed that these 3 levels influence each other continues. Organizational culture can be measured by many instruments.